All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and on behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals, I'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, August the 10th, 2023. The time is 7 p.m. We have a quorum of members, and at this time, I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Graziano? I'm here. Jasper? Here. Phelps? Here. Kretschmer? O'Laughlin? Here. Williams? Cassiter? Here. Corey?
Here. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much, everyone. So, folks, I think what we'll do is just start off with the meeting minutes from our last meeting that we need to approve. You might remember that was for the Jandis Road cutoff and the variance for a wall sign. So I think all of you have your meeting minutes, and I'll just do this via general consent. Those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for 201 Jandis Road, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. So our first case, and for the petitioner, I know you probably haven't been here in a little while. The way we do this, we'll have Mr. Simmons give us an overview of the application, and then upon conclusions, member of the ZPA may have questions for Mr. Simmons. Upon conclusion, we'll ask yourself to come up and maybe add any additional comments or color to the application that you think is appropriate. Once again, members of the ZPA may have some questions for yourself. After that, we'll open it up to public. We do actually have someone sitting here that I'll consider from the public. And if they want to make any comments, they'll be welcome to do that at that time. Once we close that portion of the meeting, we'll call a vote for the application, and then that vote will be delivered back to our elected officials who become the final arbiter of our discussion this evening. So that's our process. And so without further ado, I will now call Village Case 23 ZPA 06002. The petitioner is the Cary Consolidated School District 26. The location is 2109 Crystal Lake Road. And at this time, I'll ask Mr. Simmons to give us an overview of the application for conditional use for an electronic message center monument sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, the case this evening is a request for a conditional use for electronic message center sign for the existing junior high up on Crystal Lake Road. Little background on the property. The property is zoned for E1 single-family residential, which does permit school uses by right within that district. They are requesting approval this evening just for approvals related to the modifications to an existing monument sign to allow for a electronic message center, which requires EMCs require conditional use approval under our Unified Development Ordinance. The history of the site was annexed back into the village back into 1997, and at that time both the Deer Path Elementary and Cary Junior High schools were constructed on the property. Most recently in 2020, the village did approve a conditional use for an EMC sign related to the Deer Path Elementary School, which has been installed along Crystal Lake Road, and now the petitioner is seeking to do a similar installation for the existing junior high sign further to the east on that roadway. This slide shows the proposed signage as the location of the existing monument sign would be replaced with a new monument sign with the EMC panel. As proposed, the total sign area would be about 70 square feet in total surface area, and the EMC display would be about 24, roughly 25 square feet as well, which constitute about 35% of the proposed signage. Per section 512.3 of the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14, as mentioned previously, electronic message centers require conditional use approval. They are only permitted on monument signs, which is proposed in this instance. Likewise, the EMC panel cannot exceed 40% of the allowed sign area. The proposed sign would be 35%, so it will comply with that requirement. But also some other requirements for the operation of the sign is that the messages must be static in nature, and that they can't have any movement or flashing components to it. There's maximum illumination levels for both day and nighttime, and the night sign would need to automatically dim when light conditions dim in the evening to meet those levels. I will state, just recently drove past the sign at Deer Path. It is not complying with the motion as far as the message portions of it now, so that's something we can address with the petitioner to have addressed from that standpoint, but that would be a condition of approval to comply with the no motion and messages. With any conditional use within that's proposed, there are various standards that need to be met, which are summarized in this slide within the Unified Development Ordinance. In general, the use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare, will not diminish or substantially diminish or impair the values of property within the immediate vicinity, will not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services, and then consistent with the policies and future land use maps in the village's comprehensive plan. In this particular case, in case ZPA case 23-ZPA 0602, should the ZPA determine the various standards have been met, staff is recommending that the ZPA recommend approval of a conditional use to the village board for electronic message center sign for the property located at 2109 Bristol Lake Road, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the report, and the petitioners here as well provide additional testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Ladies or gentlemen, questions for Mr. Simmons? So I have two, Mr. Simmons. One, oh, please. Yeah.
Did you ever get any feedback on the high school sign? Good or bad?
The high school sign as far as
The electronic messaging and,
no,
good,
yeah,
okay.
that one's been there for several years.
Yeah.
And, similar to this, the adjacent sign here, occasionally they do change messages, just the operator
Yeah.
does put some motion in there, so we do have to do enforcement occasionally, but yeah.
So, Mr. Simmons, my question was going to be, one, the comment that you made about the sign today in the motion. Will you expand on that for the group here so we understand exactly where you're coming from on that?
Sure. So there's a couple of conditions. Essentially, what our code allows is condition 4 would be the electronic message center shall not display any videos or any blinking, flashing, or scrolling script across the viewing area, and any messages which are displayed shall be static in nature. Essentially, what that means is any message that goes up on the screen is there's no motion or movement within the message, and then when there's a transition to another message, it's instantaneous. There shouldn't be any scrolling or dissolving or other transitions from that standpoint. So just like I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation here, if I change the slide, they're kind of dissolved and faded in. But it should be an instant switch between the two from that standpoint. So that's the main.
So did I hear you said you drove to the sign and it wasn't doing this? Is that what my understanding was?
Yeah. So there's an existing sign by the Deer Path Elementary School that was approved back in 2020 on the same property. So this proposal tonight is a different sign, obviously, but the sign that's installed out there does have transitions that don't comply with code. They're not instant. So it would just be something I want to address with the petitioner to have that sign.
Okay.
And it's a selective or occasional enforcement effort we have to do, not just with these signs, but other signs in town too. Occasionally, the operators may not understand the requirements for time between messages, or they can't have those types of transitions. So we do have to advise them occasionally to remind them of what the code provisions are.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. And then my other question, Mr. Simmons, was going to be a number of people were noticed on this presentation. And did you receive any feedback whatsoever from anyone?
We did not.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Simmons. So, sir, if you'd like, Mr. Graziano.
My people brain tells me that we had a limitation on the number of message signs on a property, or am I confused?
There's not a limitation on the number of EMC panels you can have on a property. It's you can have a monument sign, and there can be a portion of the monument sign dedicated to an EMC panel.
Right.
And there's the distance between the two signs meets code where they can have two monument signs.
Okay. It's confusing.
Right.
Yes, it does. All right, anything else, ladies or gentlemen? Okay, so for the petitioner, if you'd like to offer additional comments or color to the application, Alls we would ask is that when you approach the podium, if you would please state your name and address, because if you're unaware, these proceedings do get recorded, and so those that are unable to attend this evening can go back and look at this particular video.
My name's Steve Fields. I'm the Operations Coordinator for District 26, and I live at 955 Milford Street. in
Thank you,
Cary.
Mr. Fields. Appreciate it.
And I'll advise the principal about the transitions, that they're not supposed to,
It's not a big, it's just something I observed today. and
yeah,
we
so
just talked.
that was news to me, so I'll let him know. And, you know, these signs were donated. We want to get them used before they go obsolete in the storeroom somewhere. And the junior high has a lot more messages that, activities that they'd like to advertise that is currently happening, so.
Okay. So before you adjourn here, let me just double check with the members if anyone has any additional questions. I think I did hear you say you'll take Mr. Simmons' comments back to the school
Yes.
and make sure that people that are responsible for the sign will make those adjustments. Yeah?
Yes, and then
Okay.
I'll let who's ever gonna be operating this new sign, what the requirements are.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fields. All right, folks, so I think this is pretty straightforward, so unless there's any questions, I'm going to call this motion. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Jasper. So we will open it up to the public, and thank you for the reminder, Mr. Jasper. I don't think we're going to have any questions from the public, but thank you for the reminder, and we will close that portion of the meeting. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve a conditional use for an electronic message center sign for the property located at 2109 Crystal Lake Road, subject to the 6 conditions listed in the staff report.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Simmons, would you call the roll?
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Cassiter,
Yes.
Graziano,
Yes.
Jasper. Helps. Corey.
Yes. So, Mr. Fields, you have a positive recommendation. So the way this will work now is that this gets put on something called the consent agenda at the village board level. And it's been my experience is that when something gets voted this way, there's not necessarily an additional discussion, but I would encourage you to stay in close coordination with Mr. Simmons. He'll have a better line of sight on this than I would. But we'll wish you and the school continued success, and thank you very much for making your way over here tonight to educate us on the sign.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
It'll be on the agenda for September 5th.
There you go. Happy birthday in advance. Okay, before we adjourn, anything else that anyone would like to discuss? Mr. Simmons, anything else coming down the pike that you want us to be aware of?
We may have a meeting next month. I have a petition that might be coming in for another sign variance. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but that's kind of the next pipeline project. So potentially in September, and I'll know for certain by next week.
Okay, very good. All right, without further ado, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. And congratulations, Julie, on your first vote.
Short, sweet meeting, huh?